Know Your Candidate. Presented by Portland is Possible, broadcasted by XRAY FM. In this segment, we offer a brief background on the visionary candidates that are proudly standing and running for the acclaimed Portland Area City Council. For now, we have a candidate of District 3 that incorporates Montevilla, Belmont, and Hawthorne neighborhoods.
My name is Steve Novick, and I'm running for Portland City Council in District 3.
How should the city think about balancing environmental and economic interests as the region grows?
Well, that's one of those common questions that seems to sort of assume that there's a conflict between the environment and economic growth, and I will give the trite answer that I don't really think there is. In fact, I think that Portland's economic strength in years before the past few years is based largely on people thinking this is a nice place to live, and the quality of the environment is very important to making people think it's a nice place to live. So there might be some marginal places where some environmentalists on a particular issue might be thinking that something needs to be done that some people who care about economic growth think should not, but by and large, the two things go together, especially here.
What type of artistic institution and businesses are more important, in your opinion, to grow in the next decade?
I don't really have a direct answer to that. So I'll answer a related question that I would like to answer, which is what kind of public art do you think is most important for us to have more of in Portland? And when I think of Portland, I think of it as a city that is trying to be a great European city, as Charlie Hales used to say. And one thing that we're missing is pedestrian plazas with public art. I think that the closest we can come to having places like, Piazza Navona with the Fountain of the Four Rivers in Rome, or the Piazza with the statue of Neptune in Bologna, that's something we should aspire to. So maybe institutions would be people or institutions that can generate great public art that we can put in pedestrian plazas.
What are the biggest impediments to Portland making progress on its environmental, economic, and cultural goals in the next decade?
In terms of environmental goals, one obstacle is we need a recommitment to environmental goals. I was talking to somebody the other day who was talking about how the Bureau of Environmental Services, which used to be a national leader in using green infrastructure to both address stormwater issues and help green up the city, has really fallen away from that. And that's something that needs to be reemphasized. As far as cultural goals, I think, generally having a thriving city with people who want to go places is important, and having people be less down in Portland and wanting more to go out. Also, this is a negative thing, but I think that it would be very unfortunate if Live Nation invaded Portland with a predictable negative effect on our lively music scene. As far as our economic goals are concerned, again, we had a quick economic growth in Portland until the past several years. Now we're sort of stuck in a rut. That is partly because the cost of housing grew too high, so attracting new people was difficult, so bringing down the cost of housing is important. But also I think that addressing the homeless crisis, the perception of high crime, which is becoming less and less an actual reality, and generally being more cheerleaders for Portland and making Portland once again the place that the New York Times writes about how wonderful it is every 2 weeks, I think that will be good for our economic future.
What is your vision for how Portland transforms in the next 10 years?
I think, I'm going to sound like a broken record, but I think that Portland should strive to be a great European city in the United States. And I think that means that we have a human-friendly transportation environment where we do making more and more investments and efforts to make bicycling and walking ways of getting around, as well as transit. I think, as I said before, that we look for places where there are no cars, where there's pedestrian plazas, where there's public art. I think that we want to be a place that, and we have been more than other places like this, we want to get back to that, of being a place that is on a human scale, where people are interacting on the street and moving around in things other than cars.
As a city councilor, who would you go to first when looking for ideas and insights for developing a vision for the city's future?
I think that one person I would go to for the city's physical future is, again, Mayor Charlie Hales, who was the guy who said in the 90s that we want Portland to be the greatest European city in America. Charlie has a way of thinking about place and buildings that I really don't have. I don't have that instinct. As far as making Portland a city that is, compassionate and cares about its people, one person I'd go back to is Eric Sten, and I wish that Gretchen Kafuri were still here to talk to as well.
Lightning round. Where do you get your coffee?
Albina Press at Hawthorne and 50th.
What restaurant or food cart is totally underrated?
Well, I don't know that it's really underrated, but it's so great that it's probably impossible to rate it high enough. Matt's Barbecue, the food cart in Hinterlands, just the migas taco, it's a full meal for like $6, and it's delicious. So it's not possible to rate that highly enough. And also, Matt's had this hilarious ad I heard once, and it said, "You've got a friend in the barbecue business," which is a ripoff of the Shane Company. You've got a friend in the jewelry business. I thought that was absolutely brilliant. So combination of great cheap food and brilliant advertising is hard to beat.
What's the last show or performance you saw?
I saw the Dolly Rots at the Twilight Cafe on Grand Avenue. The Dolly Rots are one of the greatest bands in history, and as an old guy, I'm proud of the fact that they're one of the few post-2000 bands that I listen to.
Whom from Portland's past or present should our leaders take notes from?
I would say Bud Clark. When I was, even though I'd never lived in Portland, when I was living in the East Coast and I said I was from Oregon, I would tell people that we had this mayor who was incredibly cool and who flashed a statue. And I think that one thing that Portland has been missing, and certainly Portland politics has been missing, is a sense of fun and playfulness. And I think we desperately need to bring that back.
Should the President Teddy Roosevelt statue come down?
Darn, that's a tough one. Here's a guy who's responsible largely for starting the modern environmental movement, and he did bust some trust, although not as much as he got credit for. And he also had very unfortunate characteristics. One of them, of course, being a cheerleader in the imperialist Spanish-American War. Don't know if his positions on race were particularly great. So that's one. It's not as easy a question to answer. I don't think you want to be knocking down all statues of everybody you could say something bad about, but that one's a tough one for me.
So now you know your candidate, or a bit about them. We like to thank the visionary candidates, also like to especially thank all the volunteers and organizations that put this together. We couldn't do this without you. To look at each candidate, be a good Portland citizen, and to be a dashing and informed voter, listen to XRAY FM to learn about ballots and the new ranked choice voting system. And check out portlandpossible.org.